Welcome, everyone. My name is Tony Gallo. I'm the host with the Newsmakers Committee. We have a very prominent panel this morning. They need no introduction. An introduction would be like introducing Barack Obama and saying, "This is Barack Obama. He is the President of the United States." These people have lengthy resumes. I don't have a bio for Professor West, but Suze Orman, USA Today has called Suze Orman a force in the world of personal finance and a one-woman financial advisor powerhouse. Twice named by Time magazine as one of the 100 most influential people in the world, she is a two-time Emmy Award winner, the author of 9 consecutive mega bestsellers, and you can currently watch her on the Oprah Winfrey Network with her new show, America's Money Class, and on CNBC with the Suze Orman Show. I just spent some time with this morning with these two fellas on the Morning Joe show. They were quite good. Joining Suze today is Tavis Smiley and Cornel West, who was also named one of Time's 100 most influential people in the world. Tavis hosts the late-night television talk show, Tavis Smiley, on PBS, as well as the Tavis Smiley Show and Smiley and West, both distributed by Public Radio International. He has written 15 books, including Fail Up, 20 Lessons in Building Success from Failure, last summer. Tavis, along with Cornel West, embarked on a poverty tour to highlight the hardships of poor people in America. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Suze Orman.
Thank you. Before I start, I want to thank the National Press Club for letting us be here. Tony, thank you so much for letting that happen. When Tony met me this morning in the other room, he says to me, "Oh, you look much better in person." So I went, "Okay now, no problem." Actually, my response to that was, "Thank God." But anyway, we're here for a serious matter. We're here because for the past 30 years, I've spent my life and dedicated almost every waking hour of my life talking about money. And the conversation about money over the past few years has changed, and it has changed in a way that is very, very bad, if you ask me. For years, I used to say, "Be careful, everybody. The rich are getting richer, the poor are getting poorer, and middle class is disappearing." I think I can stand up here in front of all of you now and say the middle class has disappeared. There is a highway into poverty. There is not even a sidewalk out. We call them stickies. Once you get there, you stay there. So it is Suze Orman's job that I have taken upon myself to how can we change how things are done here in the United States? What tools can we give people here in the United States so they can help themselves? Because if the past is any predictor of the future, nobody's going to be able to save them except themselves. The administration, the economy, and everything that is going on just doesn't seem to recognize that we have massive poverty. You know, sometimes I go out there and I'm on these shows and people say to me, "Oh, Suze, look, we're doing pretty good. The stock market's okay. We're doing this. Don't you feel better about things?" I don't feel better about things because the voices that need to be heard are the voices that don't even know how to talk anymore. They're the voices who lost their homes, lost their cars, live in their cars. I had a woman call into the Suze Orman Show. She was living in her car. She was a teacher, but she lived in her car, and nobody knew that she was living in her car because she lost her home. And she was asking me a question about how can she make more money to do what? Pay her son's student loan bill. And I said, "Well, doesn't your son know that you're living in your car?" She said, "Suze, I don't have the heart to tell him." We don't have the heart to tell our children how bad we're really doing. We don't barely even have the heart to look in the mirror and tell ourselves how we are doing. So today, I join forces with these two great human beings. We kind of reign from the same place, don't we? You know, I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I don't know if many of you know about the south side of Chicago, but I was a white face in a sea of black faces. I grew up in the hood. I went to schools such as Horseman and South Shore. And if you know anything about the south side of Chicago back then when I went to school, it was not easy. As a high school student, I was monitored by, you know, do you have guns on you? Do you have this? Glass wasn't allowed in the classroom because it was rough. So I saw what can happen to a neighborhood when money exits it. I've lived through that. I don't want America to lose its middle class. We can do something about it, but in my estimation, we have to change what is being said. We have to change old ways of how money is judged and how money provides, from FICO scoring to all the way through the fees that are being charged. So I'm here today to open up that conversation. I'm here today with these two gentlemen because I know with them by my side, and hopefully they feel with me by their side, we can make this conversation a conversation that everybody's having. And the reason that every single person needs to have this conversation is because if you think that what's happening here with people who can't afford to do things isn't going to directly eventually affect every single one of you, I'm here to tell you, you are wrong. So I come here today to open up this conversation, that we make the word poverty and what are we going to do about it as part of the agenda that is spoken everywhere all the time in Washington to change it from the top down, and hopefully I can do what I can do to change it from the bottom up. Thank you so much. Everybody, Mr. Tavis Smiley.
Let me start by thanking Tony for having us here at the National Press Club. Since I was a kid, even thinking about being in the media, I have wanted to stand behind a microphone at the National Press Club. 20 years now into the business, I've arrived at the National Press Club standing behind a podium, and who knew I'd be standing between two of my dear friends, Suze Orman and Cornel West, two great Americans who have been long distance runners in the fight to reduce and eradicate poverty in this country. So Tony, thank you for making one of my childhood dreams come true by being here today at the National Press Club. Secondly, let me be very clear about this. I wanted to thank Suze Orman for her courage, for her conviction, for her commitment, and for her character. Suze, too modest to talk about this, but let me just be frank with you because that is my way. The financial services industry is hoping that Suze Orman fails in this endeavor. They are, pardon the pun, banking on the fact that Suze Orman is going to fail in this endeavor. Because if Suze Orman succeeds with this approved card, it's going to fundamentally and radically change the way we do financial business in this country on the part of the poor and, for that matter, everybody else. And so she is up against a significant, and I might add, gale force headwind in trying to make this effort succeed. And I am here now, as I have always been and always will be, by Suze's side and behind Suze to support her in all of her endeavors because she has a heart full of grace and a soul that truly is generated by love when it comes to poor people. I know those words are not often spoken of in financial circles, grace and love, but she does have a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love, and so I'm here to support her in any way that I can to do what we can to lift the poor in this nation. A quick word about what Dr. West and I are doing and why this conversation with Suze is so timely and why this approved card is so timely and our efforts together. Dr. West and I last summer engaged in what we called the poverty tour. We got on a bus, we raised some money, got on a bus, and went to 11 states, 18 cities over the summer and documented the plight of the poor in this country. The tour, not that it matters, but just for purposes of chronology, the tour that we were on happened before the Occupy movement started. It happened before the census numbers came out about poverty in this country. So we were delighted to be out early last year around the country on this bus called the Poverty Tour, which became a week-long program on my late night show on PBS, which we aired it last year initially and just rebroadcast that full week of shows last week on our late night show. So the Poverty Tour happened last summer. We're in town now because tonight we're pleased to be joined by Suze and Cornel West, and Michael Moore is in town, and Barbara Ehrenreich is here, and Jeffrey Sachs, and so many others in town for a conversation tonight live on C-SPAN at 6:30, open to the public, free, at George Washington University Listener Auditorium, to talk about how we get traction on the issue of poverty in this country, particularly, especially, and unapologetically in this presidential election year. 4 years ago, and I'll take my seat and let Dr. West say a few words, 4 years ago, in the race for the White House, in 3 presidential debates between Mr. McCain and Mr. Obama, the word poor did not come up one time. The word poverty did not come up one time. Mr. McCain did not raise it as the economy was tanking. Mr. Obama did not raise it as the economy was tanking. The moderators did not ask a single question about the poor or about poverty in this country during that campaign. Simply put, if I have anything to do with it, and if Suze has anything to do with it, and Dr. West and others have anything to do with it, we are not going to endure another race for the White House where the issues of the poor in this country go unaddressed. The telling of truth allows suffering to speak. If nobody tells the truth, then the suffering of the poor gets rendered invisible. And so we are here to try to speak truth, not just to power, as is so often said, but in the vein and in the legacy of Suze Orman, truth to power and truth to the powerless. And that's what this approved card is all about, and that's what our conversation tonight on C-SPAN is all about, and that's what the book that Dr. West and I are working on now called The Rich and the Rest of Us, a poverty manifesto coming out in April, The Rich and the Rest of Us, and what we can do to shrink this gap between the have-gots and the have-nots in this country. This country cannot advance, and I say this as my final thought. I truly believe that the future of this very democracy is at stake if we do not do something now to reduce and eradicate poverty. When 1 out of 2 Americans is now living in or near poverty, those numbers are not sustainable. So Suze, I congratulate you. I'm honored. I don't endorse products, but I would do anything that Suze Orman asked me to do, and that's why I'm here for the first time in my career to stand behind somebody who's put out a product that will help poor people in their effort to get out of the hole that this country in so many ways has helped dig for them. With that, please welcome Princeton professor and my dear and abiding friend, Dr. Cornel West.
I just want to say I am blessed and I am honored to be here, and I'm here because I'm standing next to my very dear sister Suze. I believe that she is doing something that is courageous, that is visionary, and it profoundly resonates with what Brother Tavis and I decided to do 25 years ago when we said we are going to live and die to make the world safe for the legacy of Martin Luther King Jr. and Fannie Lou Hamer and Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel and Dorothy Day, which is what? To begin on the notion that poor people are priceless, precious, and they have exactly the same sanctity and dignity as anybody else, be you an investment banker, professor, talk show host, or an eloquent consumer protector. And by eloquent, I mean what Cicero and Quintilian meant, wisdom speaking. And that's what Sister Suze is. Brother Tony, thank you so much for allowing us to come together. And this is just not a one-event affair, that we plan to follow through on ensuring that this tool, among others, are made available to our priceless and precious poor brothers and sisters of all color, not just because of the numbers, because this is a moral issue. This is a spiritual issue. It has to do with what kind of person we want to be, what kind of nation we want to be, and what kind of legacy we want to preserve, going back to Brother Martin and others.
I can't recall when I've heard so powerful a presentation as we've had from these three. I'm sure we have many, many questions, and that's the purpose of these Newsmaker events, So, let's have some questions. Sir, could you identify yourself and if you're with an organization, that organization? Sir, do you mind standing? Do you all mind standing when you're be center stage?
My name is Brian Beery. I'm a reporter for Europolitics, the European Affairs newspaper based in Brussels. And a question for Susie about the FICO scoring system and what she thinks of it. Just one tiny anecdote. When I came over here first and I was talking about people are saying about getting loans, the one thing they said was this FICO score, which was completely alien to me. And I discovered quickly that the fact that I had never been in debt counted against me in the FICO score system, which I found very bizarre. But anyway, I was wondering if you want to talk about that.
Before I answer that, do you all understand what he said? Do you all get that we are all judged on this little 3-digit number known as a FICO score? FICO scores determine the interest rates that you pay on car loans, home mortgages, credit cards. They also are starting to determine if a landlord will rent to you, if employers will hire you because they look at your credit report as well. It determines what your car insurance premiums are, and on and on and on. This is the reason, sir, that I have brought out what I'm calling the approved card. I think the fact that scoring in the United States of America, which everybody needs this score, scoring needs to be redone. You see, when you've lost your house, you've lost your car, you've lost your job, possibly to no fault of your own, you have also ruined your FICO score. And because you have ruined your FICO score, chances are you cannot get a credit card. You cannot get the tools that you need to get yourself back on the road, because sometimes you need help doing so. And something that helps you can be a FICO score. So it was my mission to start out, and I started trying to do this 5 years ago. Could people who pay for things on a debit card or in cash, could they get credit, and could they create a FICO score so that when you, sir, came to the United States of America, you could have gotten anything you wanted because you were paying in cash. But because you were a cash-paying person, you were penalized. You didn't have any credit because you paid in cash. Don't you think that's all ludicrous, people? You have people who are in credit card debt that pay the minimum payment due at a 29% interest rate. They have high FICO scores versus people who pay on debit cards and in cash have either low FICO scores or no FICO scores at all, or their FICO score isn't improved at all because of that. I want to change the scoring system in the United States of America. I think it is obsolete. We need to go back to cash. What has gotten every single person in trouble is they were able to borrow money, they couldn't afford to pay it back, it ruined their lives, it ruined the lives of people they possibly borrowed money from, and if we could just go back to cash, maybe we could start all over again. So the concept behind the prepaid card that I brought out is that it will be, and it is now, the very first prepaid card in history that is going to share information with a major credit bureau, TransUnion. For the next 18 to 24 months, they will be looking at this information. The information will be aggregated. The information will be anonymous. The people who have the card have to opt in. I hate opt-out programs. They have to opt in to be part of this program. And in 18 months from now, or 24 months from now, what I am hoping is that the studies will show that people who pay on a debit card can have a FICO score. And if they can have a FICO score by simply paying on a debit card, now we have people who have entered poverty who have to pay in cash, getting a score that can help them lower their car insurance premiums, help them lower things that they're doing, help them get a job. That is what is behind this. So what happened to you is the exact reason that I have created the approved card.
Very good, Susie. More questions? Ma'am,
Yes,
your name and your name.
I don't belong to an organization. My name is Portia Bacala.
Welcome,
I want to
Portia.
raise one issue. I recently financed my house. Actually, I closed like a week ago. I was actually amazed at the hoops that they put me through just to refinance. You're talking to someone with a substantial amount of equity in the house. You know, no credit problems. When I bought the house 8 years ago, I paid 20% down, no subprime mortgage, none of that. And, you know, I had to send in documents and resend them, and they were sloppy. I won't say the name of the institution. But, you know, it just kind of amazed me. I mean, it seems like because of the subprime crisis, they have gone the other way. That, you know, they're making it so hard.
Yeah, they have gone the other way. They have gone the other way. It's very difficult to get a loan today. It is very difficult to refinance today. So, but this is what I want you to think about. If it was difficult for you to do this, what is it like for somebody who just wants to buy a used car and they just need to borrow a little bit of money and they need a car just so they can go to work or whatever, or take their kids here or do whatever you need cars for? It's impossible. So you think this system is keeping you down. I asked you to think seriously, therefore, about what this system is doing to keep all those in poverty down. Again, the reason that we are all here, because that is the problem that these people are facing. And that is what we want to do something about.
Thank you. Questions? Sir.
Paul Strand with CBN News. A question for Tavis here. I've been doing a story about prison reform. I know that this is a big problem in the African American community. What do you think of this idea that's come out among both liberals and conservatives of stopping jailing people that we're mad at and just jailing people that we're afraid of? Do you think that would help help the African American community?
Who's in the mad at category and who's in the afraid of category?
Well, you know, killers, things like that. People that we actually have to worry about harming us.
Yeah.
As compared to people, you know, maybe small drug crimes, things like that.
Yeah, I'll say a quick word about it, and I will ask, with your permission, Dr. West, to respond as well, because he has for 35 years engaged in a prison ministry. Oh, let me stand. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. I saw you. I'll say a quick word about that and then ask Dr. West to add something as well, because he has for 35 years literally been engaged in a prison ministry of his own. So he spent much more time in the system than I have in terms of addressing these kinds of issues. But I do believe that as part of any significant and real prison reform effort in this country, which we do not have at the moment, we're going to have to look at who we are imprisoning and who doesn't need to be there. Most of the prisons, as you know, are overcrowded because of drug offenders. And this is an old story. I've seen it on CBN. I've talked about it many times on my program. We have to do something about these persons who need help as opposed to being locked up. That's where it has to start. But let me bring it back to why we're here today and what Susie's efforts are all about. What Dr. West and I discovered on our poverty tour last summer vis-a-vis the prison industrial complex, what we discovered is that there is a bias against poor people in this country. So that poor people are demonized, but worse yet, Susie, they are criminalized. We criminalize the poor, we demonize the poor, and that's in part what leads to overcrowding of prisons, and that's why we're now in such desperate need of a conversation about prison reform. So where poverty is concerned, the criminalization of the poor is not the answer, demonizing the poor is not the answer, locking up the poor not the answer. In New York City now, a new law on the books, you can go to jail, you can pay a fine for putting your feet up on a subway seat, even if you're on the subway by yourself at 3 o'clock in the morning. Who is that kind of law targeted at? There are too many American corporations. I saw Susie talking about this on her show one night, which I watch all the time on CNBC. How's that for a plug?
That's good.
Good, okay. There are too many American employers right now, Susie well knows, who drive would-be employees to their websites. Every company now wants you to what? Apply online. Too many companies now, when you go online, you see this disclaimer. You see this very clearly written in bold print. If you are currently unemployed, do not apply. I mean, how do you turn around poverty in the country when the unemployment is as high as it is, and they direct you online to fill out the application, and they tell you when you get there, if you are presently unemployed, do not apply No excuses. If that isn't demonizing and criminalizing the poor, I don't know what is, and that's what's wrong with our criminal justice system. Doc, you want to answer? I don't know if you want to answer.
Let's see if we can bring, Joanne, we don't have another, I guess we can't take this microphone out.
You can Doc, come down. You want to answer that prison thing?
Just very quickly.
Can we get you up here?
Sure, absolutely.
One of us is too heavy, I don't think it's you.
No, but I appreciate the question. I think, sadly, we live in a society at the moment that has warped priorities. We've spent $300 billion in a Marshall Plan. It's a carceral penal Marshall Plan, $300 billion in jails and prisons and criminal justice system. But it's hard to talk about an urban Marshall Plan when it comes to job training, when it comes to housing, when it comes to education. It's warped priorities. Prisons over education. 62% of those, and right now, 2.5 million people in prison, 62% there for soft, non-offensive drug convictions. And it's color-coded. 12% black, young brothers and sisters, flying high in the friendly skies. 12% white, flying high. 62% convictions, black. Police surveillance on the chocolate side of town, less so on the vanilla side of town. The three of us stand here together because we recognize the sanctity and dignity of all individuals and persons, regardless of color, culture, civilization, or sexual orientation. It's their humanity that we stress. So when we're talking about poverty, we're looking at society through a certain lens. And this crucial tool is a fundamental strategy in this fight against poverty, this attempt actually to eradicate poverty in the end.
Other questions, ma'am?
Hi, my name is Catherine Hogan. I'm not with the press, but I'm here to endorse and support Suze, her passion and her vision. And I'm part of that demographic of the 44 to 46% of us that now, for me, as of November, have been unemployed for 6 months or more. I'm part of the demographic that talks about how difficult it is to hold on to a decent credit rating when you can't pay your bills. I'm part of the demographic when I am a counselor previously working with public housing residents and single female heads of household who referred them to food banks and other resources who now am standing in the same line they stood in. And I'm wondering why, in Montgomery County in particular, if not nationwide, we're not showing more of a vision and a light on that. When I'm standing in a line in the pouring rain with over 300 people for Thanksgiving, okay, why is Montgomery County press not interested in that? Why, when I call in a press tip to them about the 310 Thanksgiving turkey packages that are being given out for the first time in that number in Rockville by Manna, a wonderful entity here who helps the poverty-stricken in Montgomery County. Why are they not going out to cover that? Why is that not a human interest story? Why are we only hearing, if at all, in a distance about other issues? You know, that's my concern. So, Suze, I stand here in my truth, okay? Here it is.
Yeah.
Okay? So I want to applaud you for your vision, and I will be the first one in line to get that credit.
So debit card, prepaid debit card. So, but I want you to stand up again. I want you to all look at this woman. I want you to look at her because the face of poverty is that. It's not like you think in your head, oh, they're on the streets, they're begging for food. You can tell because they have a certain way about them. The one thing that's fascinating about money is you can't look at somebody and you can't really know anymore, are they rich, are they poor, are they starving? You don't know. But I'm asking all of you to make the assumption that their lives are not going the way they wished their lives were going. This now is the face of the poor. You got to change this. It's not, there should be no face of poor in the entire United States. I can't understand why a country like ours can't really put resources and people behind doing something to help you and bring this issue to the public, which is why the three of us are here. You know, Tavis and I have been together for a long time now. And we were speaking, you know, at events before when, you know, Senator Barack Obama was still just a senator. And I was the only, again, white face in that whole sea of faces on the south side of Chicago. So we've got to change things. And I hope that's what we have started here among all of you today.
Other questions? Come on, don't be shy. Oh, okay. Her, 1, 2. Sorry, sir.
My name is Eileen Schlepp, and I have my own general manager was quoted as saying, "We're a business, not a social service agency," when I tried to work something out. They've done some really horrible things that I think it's across the board to all customers. There's no one to turn to. And with all my education, I cannot find out who to report them to, who to get a voice, because I know I wrote them a letter and they're using all my points to change their website. So I know there's stuff going on. And I worked at Chase Manhattan Bank corporate office for 3 years, so I know what banking does. Where's the protection for your average person?
Did you hear what this woman said? It's not about, just a few people feeling this way. Millions and millions of people that feel the way that you do. I created the approved card. It's a little bank unto itself. You can carry that around with you, and you can do everything you need to do on this, and you actually do not need another bank. I am behind this card. I created this card from the bottom up. There are many people, as you heard Tavis say, that will say all kinds of things about this card that really are not true, because the people that are doing so have something to gain. In the same way that those people aren't addressing your needs, but they're taking your information, that's happening all over right now. But you have to learn who to trust. You have to learn what rings true for you. And you have to look at somebody's past behavior. And does that past behavior show that you're going to be taken care of and you're going to be the main priority? If it does, you might want to think about going with them. And if it doesn't, you might want to stay away from them. I am trying to give you an alternative where really people come before money.
Sir.
Thanks. Barry Wood, MoneyWeb in South Africa. I wonder if you've thought about international application of this kind of concept of a prepaid card, where a lot of people are reluctant to carry cash and need cash when they buy things.
Yes, South Africa is very near and dear to my heart. Jill Marcus, which is the Reserve Governor, is a very good friend of mine. Tito Mbawini was the Reserve Governor before her, and when Thabo Mbeki and everybody was there, we had discussions. I was actually very, very involved with getting F&B Bank to lower interest rates from 35% on credit cards back then down to 15% and so on and so forth. So whether you know it or not, because it's not something that I talk about here in the United States, I've been very involved, especially with South Africa, because their pensioners get robbed all the time as they're taking their pensions. So yes, we hope to take this card international, you betcha, and I'll do it with the help, hopefully, of Jill Marcus. There we go.
Ma'am?
It's all the other prepaid cards. Because one can have a debit card that's attached to a checking account, that's attached to a bank, and there are many people that may not be paying any fees and they like how it's going, or a credit union, they should stay there. But there are many people that aren't happy with the services and the fees that they are being charged and things that are happening at major banks. So this is a prepaid card, and what makes this different, in my opinion, is the intention behind it. The intention of this card is to change credit scoring in the United States of America. The intention behind this card is to give people the least cost-effective way for them to be able to pay online, to be able to have a card to access things, because it's very dangerous today sometimes to carry cash around. If you lose cash, what are you going to do? So I've tried to create, and I hope you'll go through it very thoroughly, a card that if you simply make a $20 a month deposit on this card, that the fees on it are literally non-existent. Now, I know a lot of people have been saying, oh, Susie, your fees, this is... It's not. If you really look at how this card operates, you'll see that it will not cost you more than $3 per month. And remember, this card also entitles you to have 3 additional cards. So if you're a mom and you have 3 kids that are going to college and you want to be able to give them a card so that they don't get themselves in trouble and that you can fund, it's all 4 cards are $3. Also, this card comes with many advantages, as I think you've seen, which is unlimited credit scores from TransUnion, unlimited credit reports from TransUnion, unlimited credit monitoring 24 hours, 7 days a week from TransUnion, and identity theft, all for that $3 per month. I'm hoping as we get into this that $3 a month gets to go away. But currently, because we're not charging anything for fees and things like that, somebody's got to pay for the plastic. Something's got to get paid for the 24/7 people who answer the phones. Something's got to be done for that. So this card has a different mission. This card isn't there to say, make money, I want to do this. This card is to give people a viable alternative that one day, hopefully, will actually generate them a FICO score. So we'll just have to see. And what really makes this card different is that I have put my name on it, I have put my reputation on it, I have put my intention behind it. And no financial institution, no blogger, nobody who has anybody interested at heart other than their own is going to stop me.
And your money.
Yeah. And my money,
And
that's
our
right.
money, that's the main
I funded this all myself.
Questions? Ma'am?
Adrian Todman, I'm the executive director of the DC Housing Authority. And so just on behalf of my staff who deal with the impact of generational poverty every day and the 50,000 people we serve, I'd just like to thank all of you for the vision that you're giving and the attention you're giving to poverty. It's something we don't talk about enough, but it's certainly pervasive problem.
Thank you for saying that.
Thank you. Ma'am?
Brenda Harrison. I'm a local consumer educator and advocate. I teach on a national level for several intermediaries who receive federal funding for consumer education, particularly in the area of foreclosure and several other federal programs. And I'm hearing about the products, and there are lots of products. I was with Susie when the Rush card was announced at the convention center several years ago, and I've been a part of that analysis and looking at it. I'm still concerned or questioning where the educational component comes in to protect people, and also the whole concept of the Consumer Financial Protection Board being very engaged and trying to be engaged in educating more consumers, the disconjointedness of the government entity with the private educational resources as well as the banks, so that have created disillusionment for consumers. And as a person said, someone calls, they threaten, there's no legal remedy for it, there's no consumer protection for it. The card is great, but how do we get people who are in that bad area back over to where you are to rebuild? Because they still have to deal with the legalities of everything that they're facing.
To whom is your question directed? Susie, okay.
I hope it's Susan.
I love that question. Let me tell you why I love that question. Don't you think that Suze Orman would bring out a card, a prepaid card that has education attached to it? Don't you think that I would bring out a card so that people can tell me what's going on in their lives as well, so I could help them? One might want to ask, why would somebody, especially those who don't have money, why would they need identity theft protection? I'll tell you why they need identity theft protection. When you don't check your credit reports, when you don't see what's going on in your life, all the identity thieves out there, they know you don't do that. They know that you think you have no money, so you're not checking to see what's gone on because your identity already, on some level, has been ruined. So they know you aren't going to catch them taking your Social Security number and your information and trying to do other things with it. That is why I gave everybody free identity theft protection on this card. Because young children today, I'm just going to add this, young children are having their Social Security numbers stolen when they're 3, 4 at birth, and they don't understand this because nobody's checking their reports, and by the time they're 18, they've ruined their entire lives, and nobody is helping them solve it. So also, just so you know, I met with the CFPB. I met with the consumer union. I took my time before we brought this out to go to them and say, what can we do together to help people? How can I help you? How can you help me? What do you want to make sure that this card has on it? What do you want to make sure that we don't do? I was asking for the help of the regulatory people, of the consumer action people, of people who really know. And I listened to them. and I hope they listen to me. So am I going to be there to try to educate them on this card? And I just have to say this briefly. Part of education is knowing how much money you spend and how much money you have left. Not getting into trouble. Every single morning you will wake up with a little bing from me, and it will tell you exactly how much money you have on this card. Every time you swipe it, you will get a little bing from me, text and or email. Don't do text if you have to pay for text. Fine. All right. That will tell you, you spent $50, you only have $30 left. If you go out of service to get money from an ATM, oh, you will get a text from me saying, what are you thinking? Are you stupid? Because you're spending $3 to get money when if you just went to the all-point system, 35,000 ATMs, it will be free for you as long as you're depositing at least $20 per month. So I try to help them by getting them back in touch with how much do they have, what did they spend, and at the end of every month, they will get a statement, obviously online, that says, oh, you spent $300 a month on clothes, $500 here. It categorizes it for them, and I will have comments. Don't you think you're spending too much money on clothes? So I am going to bring my Suze Orman show live to these cards to help educate people, but in a humorous way. Because when it comes to money, if you just say, bam, 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 they can't do anything. So I'm going to be there for them with my education, which what makes this card different.
Ma'am?
Hi, I'm Sally Greenberg with National Consumers League. And it seems to me there are two Suze Ormans here. The one Suze Orman tells people to get their act together and quit spending money they don't have, and watch how they're dealing with their accounts. And the other Suze Orman is trying to join the fight against poverty and getting people out of poverty and talking about how we've lost or the middle class has dwindled. And so I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about which Suze Orman is sort of behind this effort and how you ended up working with these two very eminent gentlemen on this effort.
I don't see that as two different Suze Ormans. The people that call into my show, Sally, are people who don't have any money, people who are one paycheck away from bankruptcy. And this all started with me, this whole thing, this other side of me, where they were one paycheck away from bankruptcy, but they had a 760 FICO score. People learned how to make sure that they had a good FICO score even though they didn't have any money. Because according to the scoring method today, they don't know where the money is coming from to pay the minimum payment due on their credit cards. Is it a payday loan? Is it a withdrawal from a retirement account? Is it a cash advance on another credit card to pay off this one? So forever, I have seen poverty be at the forefront everywhere. So I don't know how familiar you are with my work, but I've been talking like this for years and years and years. You just don't come to the platforms where I normally do this. On TV, I can't sit up there and preach. But I'm kind of a preacher. I'm kind of a preacher because I believe in what I say, and TV isn't the platform to do that. But when I give a talk in person or when I'm doing what I do, you hear this is part of me. Because remember, you may look at me now as a wealthy woman, and I am. But I wasn't always wealthy. My mom was a secretary. She sold Avon. I myself was a waitress for 7 years till I was 30 years of age, making $400 a month. I never thought I would be anything, so why should I even try? So I lived in that poverty mentality most of my life until now. So it's really one. It really is one. And Tavis can tell you, this isn't just, I just met him last week. I've known Tavis now for years and years and years, saying, what can we do to change the system? And so it may be new to you, but really it's one Suze Orman. I have both feet in one boat. Because when you have one foot in one boat and another foot in another boat, and those boats start going another direction, you're sunk. Yeah.
Ma'am?
Nikki Schwab with the Washington Examiner. Suze, what do you think about the Occupy movement?
Yeah, Suze, what do you think about that? I like the Occupy movement. And I think it's very, very important that people hear what they have to say. Because all they're saying is, will somebody listen to me? Will somebody just let me feel like I matter? You know, all people want in life is to be seen, to be heard, and to know that what they say matters. And there are a group of people out there, 1, 2, in this room that voiced their opinion already, that nobody is listening to them. They don't feel like they matter. They don't even feel like they can be seen. So they are bringing the attention to, we matter. So I like what they're doing. Do I wish they had a little bit more direction, that they had a voice, so that somebody could really glob on to what they are saying? Of course I do. That isn't currently the way they're going, but I'm not leading that movement. But I think what they say matters.
Any other questions? We have had a very successful event. As many of you know, I'm a playwright and a film and theater producer, and I judge each event by 2 measurable criterion: how many people fall asleep and how many people leave early. We had absolutely 0, the highest possible score. We owe it to these 3 delightful people. Let's give them a standing ovation. Thank you very much. And if any of you have questions, would you please?